All praises to Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem Akakwadash. Double honors to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone, and Shalom to the nation of Israel. This is going to be a lesson talking about how Esau's fake or Esau's pseudo intellectual spirit is going to be cast out and rebuked, man, because these Edomites think that with their wisdom that they've got, right, that they're going to be able to somehow use it to escape judgment, but they're not going to be able to, right? So let's go into the scriptures. This is Jeremiah chapter 49. Jeremiah 49 and verse 7. Concerning Edom, thus saith Yahweh of hosts, is wisdom no more in Teman? Is the counsel perished from the prudent? Is their wisdom vanished? And Esau's wisdom is going to vanish when he sees all the things that Yahweh is going to do upon the earth, because he understood that he was taking the Israelites into slavery when he did what he did, right? He understood exactly who it was that he did these things to. And that's why when people want to try and say that, oh, other people in the world have been through certain things, whatever they want to say, right? All these other people that have so-called went through things in the earth, it was never the same as what happened to us, man. It was never the same as what happened to the Negro Latino and the Negro Latinos and the Native Americans. It was never the same as what happened to us, who are the Israelites, who everybody wants to try and not acknowledge that we're the Israelites and wants to try and continually put all these different nationalities on us, man. They want to continually call us all these other different terms, especially those of us that look like so-called black people that are Israelites. They want to try and ever change what they call us and say that we are, right? Which shows that one time when they was calling us one thing, they was lying. Because if at one time we're being called Negro, but then at another time we're being called black, but then at another time we're being called colored, but then at another time we're being called African American, but then if another time we're being called Black British, right? Obviously, one of those terms, or all of those terms, which we know it's really all of those terms, were wrong, because your nationality and what you are cannot change. You are what you are, and no matter what you call yourself, that does not change. And we never stopped being the Israelites when we was being called all these other proverbs and bywords. And the reason why we was getting called these things was because we was under a curse from Yahweh. Jeremiah chapter 49 and verse 7 again. Concerning Edom, thus saith Yahweh of hosts, is wisdom no more in Teman? Is the counsel perished from the prudent? Is their wisdom vanished? Flee ye, turn back, dwell deep, O inhabitants of Dedan, for I will bring the calamity of Esau upon him, the time that I shall visit him. If grape gatherers came to thee, if grape gatherers come to thee, verse 9, if grape gatherers come to thee, would they have not left some gleaning grapes? Would they have not leave some gleaning grapes? If thieves by night, they will destroy till they have enough, right? But Esau is going to be destroyed completely. According to Obadiah, the first chapter in the 18th verse, verse 10, for I have made Esau bare, I have uncovered his secret places, and he shall not be able to hide himself. His seed is spoiled, and his brethren and his neighbors, and he is not. So Esau is not going to get the chance to try and come back and exalt himself as a nation after Yahweh brings this next judgment on him. He's going to continually keep fading lower and lower and lower, and he's not going to be given a place of repentance. He's the end of his captivity and the end of his punishment is going to be completely destroyed, because the need for him is not going to be there no more, and people are going to see why the need for him is not going to be there no more, because they're going to see what it is that he's going to do on the earth, man. People don't understand what it is that this man's getting ready to do, but they're going to be understanding of what it is that what he's like and his character after he performs the things that he's planning on to perform, and after he tries to make humans make it become mandatory for humans to take a particular device that's similar to the size of a grain of rice in their hands or in their foreheads, man. People are going to understand. Then verse 11, Jeremiah 49 and verse 11, leave thy fatherless children, I'll preserve them alive, and let thy widows trust in me, which your women are not going to care when they see you getting taken down, man. And all of this whole patriarchy and all this whole feminism talk and all this spiel that women be running off and firing at the gums about, man. Really, the person that they're talking about when they say all of these things is you Edomites, man. Really, that's the person that's causing all of these problems in all of these women's lives that are running their mouth, right? But even those women are not going to be exempt because they've been wicked too. And your women of your nation are not going to be exempt because they've been right alongside you in the wickedness. They've been right alongside you being wicked too, man. But the thing is, they're not going to mourn for the judgment that you receive. Verse 12, for thus saith Yahweh of hosts, behold, they whose judgment was not to drink of the cup have assuredly drunken, and art thou he that shall go altogether unpunished? Thou shalt not go unpunished, but thou shalt surely drink of it. Verse 13, for I have sworn by myself, saith Yahweh, that Bozrah shall become a desolation, a reproach, a waste, and a curse, and all the cities thereof shall be perpetual waste. So Yahweh's going to do this, and there's not going to be nobody that's going to be able to say, oh, nah, that's not going to happen. Verse 14, I have heard a rumor from the Lord, and an ambassador is sent unto the heathen, saying, gather ye together and come against her, and rise up to the battle. Verse 15, for lo, I will make thee small among the heathen, and greatly despised, and you Edomites are starting to be looked at sideways now. People are starting to look at you like you ain't the guy that you say you are. They're starting to question you. When you start to say things now, people are starting to say, why? Right? People are starting to say, why should I do that? People are starting to question the things that you do. They're starting to see that you've got an ulterior motive to things that you say, and an ulterior motive to the things that you do, that you're not just some kind-hearted individual that's here to save the planet, right? You're not that. People are starting to look at you just with an evil eye, man, and question the things that you say and the things that you do now. Nobody just believes the words that come out of your mouth without question anymore, because they've seen that there's other ways, right? And the word of Yahweh people are starting to see that some of these things are right present in front of our face, man. People are starting to see what you're doing with all of these technologies, and that you're trying to put things in people's hands or in people's heads, and they're starting to say, hang on, but that's mentioned in the Bible though. There's a thing in the Bible that sounds like that. And there's still ignorant people. But the point is that people are starting to try and go their own way without Esau now. This is Isaiah chapter 47 and verse 1. Come down and sit in the dust, O virgin daughter of Babylon. Sit on the ground, there is no throne, O daughter of the Chaldeans. For thou shalt no one be called tender and delicate. And Esau's not being called tender and delicate anymore, man. People ain't trusting his IQ talk anymore. People are starting to look at him and question him. Now the elite level Edomite, he's still got the wool pulled over people's eyes to a certain degree, right? But yet people are still starting to question the things that they say, that their rulers say, man. Even Esau, the lower level Edomite, is questioning what another Edomite says. But then the lower level Edomite cannot try and come with that I'm Caucasian talk anymore to an average person, because they ain't trying to hear that. When they start running their mouth and being racist to people, sometimes they get their jawbone leaned off, man. Sometimes they get hit with a 2-piece and a biscuit, as people be saying. Sometimes they get when they try and come at people with carnality, they get caught being carnal. When they try and come at people with that racist Karen talk and with that all that hate, there's a phone gets pulled out and they get recorded and get caught for doing the madness that they're doing, man. And they still escape judgment to a certain degree. But the point is that people are starting to see them for what they really are, man. People are starting to see that they escape judgment. People are starting to witness that. They talk all this stuff about fair play, fair equality, and all this stuff, and they say that they're about a certain way. But when you look at how they actually go about things, you see the hypocrisy. Isaiah 47 and verse 2, take the millstones and grind meal, uncover thy locks, make bare the leg, uncover thy thigh, pass over the rivers, thy nakedness shall be uncovered, yea, thy shame shall be seen. I will take vengeance, and I will not meet thee as a man. As for our Redeemer, and that's going into as many things, that verse there, that he's not going to meet thee as a man, because when you read Deuteronomy chapter 28 and verse 68, it says, and no man shall buy you. And let me read it. Let me read that scripture, in fact. Because Yahweh ain't going to come into meet as a man. So he can buy us. He can redeem the nation of Israel. This is Deuteronomy chapter 28 and verse 68. And the Lord shall bring thee into Egypt again, which this is a curse. And the Lord shall, and this is a curse that you Edomites performed on us, man, you so-called Caucasians. And the Lord shall bring thee into Egypt again with ships, by the whereof I spake unto thee, thou shalt see it no more again. And they shall be sold unto your enemies for bondmen and bondwomen, and no man shall buy you. And no man shall buy you, and no man shall buy you. But when Yahweh Shai returns, he ain't coming to the earth as a man, right? So he's worthy to buy or redeem us for the things that we've gone through. Isaiah chapter 47 and verse 3, thy nakedness shall be uncovered, which Esau is being seen for who he is now. Thy shame shall be seen. The shame that we're talking about is the thing that they did to us as the nation of Israel, man. Right? It says in Obadiah chapter 1 and verse 10, for violence against thy brother Jacob, shame shall cover thee. And these Edomites continue. They can't escape that they did that, man. They can't escape that is the foundation of all their success that they have on the earth, man. That all the money that they have is based on them doing that. And if they hadn't have did that, they wouldn't have been where they was, man. Where was the success? Where was the riches of the Edomite before they performed that on us? Where was that? Or was that the catalyst for them becoming a wealthy nation? We all know the answer. All the banks that they have, was that not based around them doing that? Was that not based around that? If you have a people in slavery for centuries, you're going to become very wealthy because you don't have to pay them nothing. And if you don't believe that, well, then you're going to get to see how wealthy we become when we have you in the same position, because we ain't going to be paying you. Just like how you didn't pay us, you're not going to be paid. You're going to be getting paid back for the wickedness that you've done. Because the only reason why we went through these things, let's not make no mistakes. The only reason why we went through that is because we sinned against our God, whose name is Yahweh. And therefore he sent a curse upon us like he said he was going to do. Isaiah chapter 47 and verse 3. Thy nakedness shall be uncovered, yea, thy shame shall be seen. I will take vengeance, and I will not meet thee as a man. As for our Redeemer, the Lord of hosts is his name, the Holy One of Israel. Sit thou silent and get thee into darkness, O daughter of the Chaldeans, for thou shalt no more be called the Lady of Kingdoms. And America in particular is getting ready to not be called that great place, man. Right? People love to go there still now. People like to go there, right? But there's other places that are starting to become the so-called hotspots in the world, right? But even those places are not going to be desired too, because those places are going to get destroyed, man. Because all of these places have tried to go about their own way and tried to forget that Yahweh has made rules on how people are supposed to live on earth. And you've got all these people that talk all this IQ talk, all these psychologists that will sound smart when they're talking, right? But then the person will be about 60 years old, and then you start hearing them talking about some billions of years ago with certainty. But if we talk about biblical history that we don't even say goes back 20,000 years, people try and say, how do you know? Was you there? Well, how the hell do you know? Was you there a billion years ago? 3 billion years ago? Was you there with the things that you're talking about? No, you wasn't. But they'll try and mock us for having faith in what we say. But then the things that they say, you find that they can't prove the things that they're talking about. And the things that they're talking about happen way longer than the things that we're saying that we believe in. But when we say it's a joke, but when they say it's not a joke, when we read from the Bible, they say, who wrote that? Oh, but I don't read nothing that men read. But when they read what they're reading, or they read somebody else's study, well, was they there when that person did that study? Did they know? Did they see things taking place? Was they there? Was they there? How do they know? Like, for example, people that don't believe that certain herbs work, right? Was you there when they did the case study? Was you there was you there to take part in that dissertation? Was you there when they was performing the experiment? How do you know that they really used the experimental groups that they said? How do you know? But people mock that. People mock that a herb might cause for somebody to be cured from something, right? And they'll say, now, but this chemical, this scientist chemical can cure it. But where the hell did the ingredients for that chemical that they're using for people for whatever disease they've got, where did the ingredients for that come from? Would they not have came from things on the earth? You can't make an ingredient for something out of thin air. You can't do that. The ingredients for any so-called treatment that Esau uses in his medical industry came from things that are already present in the earth. So for somebody to believe that you can eat your way to better health is considered as a joke. But where did the chemicals come from that they're putting through somebody through an IV drip? Where did that come from? But let an Edomite talk, and they'll try and make out like they made the ingredients when all they did is extract different parts of things that Yahweh's already made in the earth and put them together. That's all they did. That's all any medicine really is. Extracting things that Yahweh already made and combining them with something else through whatever method they go about to do that, man. Let me carry on. For example, protein powder, right? A lot of people are into that whole protein powder thing, but you can just eat chickens. You can just eat animals that already have protein. You don't necessarily need to have it in a supplement form, man. You don't need to do that. Like people that are into working out, whatever, you don't need to have protein powder. You don't need to do that, man. It can help, I guess, if you want to say that it can help to get it easier, but it's not necessary. It's not necessary, man. You can get a good enough physique and a good enough health without taking none of that. But let me carry on. Isaiah chapter 46 and verse 5. Sit thou silent and get into darkness, O daughter of the Chaldeans, for thou shalt no one be called for thou shalt no one be called the Lady of Kingdoms. I was wroth with my people, I have polluted mine inheritance, and given them into thine hand. Thou didst show them no mercy. Upon the ancient thou hast very heavily laid thy yoke. So when Esau had the Israelites in slavery, he didn't even know that he was being tested, right? Because he was going to later be in the same position. But he didn't believe that he was going to be in the same position when he had us in that captivity. He thought that he was the rightful person to be able to perform these things. So the same way how he didn't show no mercy, he's not going to receive no mercy. The same way how he didn't care and have any pity, he's not going to receive no pity. Verse 6, I was wroth with my people, I have polluted my inheritance and given them into thine hand, thou didst show them no mercy. Upon the ancient thou hast very heavily laid thy yoke. And let me just quickly prove why I'm saying that Esau is not going to receive no mercy, that he's not going to receive no pity. This is Ezekiel, and I believe it's 35. Ezekiel 35 and verse 5. Because thou hast had a perpetual hatred, and hast shed the blood, of the children of Israel by the force of the sword, in the time of their calamity, in the time that their iniquity had an end. Therefore, as I live, saith the Lord Yahweh, I'll prepare thee unto blood, and blood shall pursue thee. Since thou hast not hated blood, even blood shall pursue thee. Thus I will make Mount Seir, to prove that he's talking about Esau, thus I will make Mount Seir most desolate, and cut off from it that passeth out, and him that returneth. So Esau is going to receive judgment, man. And it doesn't really matter how smart, an IQ level ain't stopping nobody from getting judgment, right? An IQ level don't make a man not receive judgment. You don't do that, because Yahweh, for the foolishness of Yahweh, according to this, what the scriptures say, he's wiser than men. The weakness of Yahweh is stronger than men. So a man cannot escape judgment just because he thinks he's got some kind of IQ. He can't do that. And I'm going to carry on in Isaiah 47. Isaiah chapter 47 and verse 7. And thou sayest, thou shalt be a lady forever, so thou didst not lay these things to heart, neither didst remember the latter end of it. And they didn't remember the latter end, man. They didn't remember. They thought that the reason why we was in this position was because we was just dumb, because the color of our skin, they thought it was, right? And they promoted a whole belief and a whole doctrine based on skin color, showing the level of intelligence that person has and showing their worth. But then now that that's being flipped around and people are starting to look at them and judge them, right? Now all of a sudden it's bad to do that. Now all of a sudden, when you ask somebody's nationality and ask where they're from, now all of a sudden it's bad. Now all of a sudden we're all humans at the end of the day. Now that they've gathered wealth from that, now that they've gathered wealth from these things, now all of a sudden they want to switch round and go back round and say, well, now it's actually a different. We technically weren't right about that, right? And they want to try and say that we're bad for saying these things, but wasn't your forefathers bad then for all of these things? And people want to also say that we didn't suffer it. Technically, we didn't. Did you go through these things? They want to say that, but then with anything else, they don't say that same stuff, man. They don't. They never say that to nobody else that receives. They don't say that to those people in the land of Israel that are receiving money. They don't say, "Did you technically go through those things?" They don't say that, but then they'll say it to us though, because they're hypocrites, man. And the same way how they want to say that we didn't go through these things, they're trying to act like there isn't a group of other people that were the oppressors' descendants that haven't become rich from these things. They're trying to make it like the whole government and the whole society that these people have isn't based on the foundation of what they did. They're trying to actually act like that, but it doesn't matter because for all their wisdom, they're going to be made to look stupid at the end, man. Verse 8, I said to the 47, verse 8, therefore hear now this, thou that art given to pleasures. And I want to say Salakia as well if I'm talking too much. I'm going to try and stay in the scriptures for the rest of the lesson. Therefore hear now this, thou that art given to pleasures, that dwellest carelessly, that sayest in thine heart, I am and none else beside me. I shall not sit as a widow, neither shall I know the loss of children, because they thought they're so smart. Verse 9, but these two things shall come upon thee in a moment, in one day, the loss of children and widowhood, they shall come upon thee in their perfection. For the multitude of thy sorceries, and for the great abundance of thine enchantment. So because of all the things that Esau had access to that made him think he was wise, all the little witchcrafts and all these little spells that he could perform, right? He thought that he was wise. Verse 10, for thou hast trusted in thy wickedness, thou hast said, none seeth me, thy wisdom and thy knowledge have perverted thee, right? All their so-called IQ talk, all the things that they know, perverted them. It have perverted thee, and thou hast said in thine heart, I am, and none else beside me. And there's been many people before them that thought that, right? Belshazzar, he thought that when you read Daniel's 4th chapter, right? And he took the vessels from the Israelites' temple, from our temples, man, right? And he said, I'm going to drink from them like they're just any kind of wine cups, right? And then what happened? He saw that writing inscribed in the wall, man. And he got reminded about the things that had already happened to one of his forefathers, Nebuchadnezzar. But Esau thinks that he's exempt from those same things that those people went through for trying to come up against the Israelites. But they obviously forget what happened to their ancestors. Haman, right? They forget what happened to Haman. They forget what happened to their main forefather, actually Esau himself. They forget what happened to him, right? They forget what happened to Antiochus Epiphanes. They forget all of these stories, man. They forget what happened to Agag. They forget. They forgot what happened. They forget what happened to Pharaoh, who's not their ancestor, but who's a sign of what's going to happen to them. Isaiah to the 47, verse 11. Therefore shall evil come upon thee, and thou shalt not know from whence it riseth, and mischief shall fall upon thee, thou shalt not be able to pull it off, and desolation shall come upon thee suddenly, thou shalt not know. Stand now with thine enchantments, and with the multitude of thy sorceries, wherein thou hast labored from thy youth. If so be, thou shalt be able to profit. If so be, thou mayest prevail. So what that's being said there is, if you're so smart, yeah, if all of these things work, right? Well, now that you're seeing the Holy One of Israel, right? Now that you're seeing the Redeemer of Israel in front of your eyes, now that you're seeing the one that Yahweh has called his only begotten Son, right? Now that you're seeing Yahweh Shai, who is a savior of Israel that was ignited, right? The ignited savior. Now that you're seeing him in front of you, do it now then. Since it works, even now it should be able to work then. Because if it should have been, if you trust in these things, right, then it should be able to make you escape even these judgments that are coming, if it works. But what they're going to find out is that it never worked, and it was always Yahweh performing these things, right? It was always Yahweh just letting them be able to get the stupid things they was asking for, right? Because he wanted to destroy them and give Israel, who are his chosen, the beautiful things of earth. Verse 13, thou art wearied in the multitude of thy counsels, Let now the astrologers, and Isaiah 47 and verse 13, thou art wearied in the multitude of thy counsels. Let now the astrologers, the stargazers, the monthly prognosticators stand up and save thee from these things that shall come upon thee. So let them. If it works, so let's see if it works now then, right? But they're going to find out that the spells that they try and perform ain't going to work, man. They're going to find out that the wisdom that they thought they had is going to be void, because it always was void. But it was just Yahweh making them trust in their wisdom so that he could perform the work that he'd always planned to perform. Verse 14, behold, they shall be, Isaiah 47 and verse 14, behold, they shall be as stubble, the fire shall burn them, they shall not deliver themselves from the power of the flame, they shall not be a coal to warm it, nor to sit before it. And now let me finish off the lesson with the final judgment of what Esau is going to receive, that their wisdom is not going to be able to make them escape from. Obadiah chapter 1 and verse 18, and the house of Jacob shall be a fire, and the house of Joseph a flame, and the house of Esau for stubble, and they shall kindle in them and devour them, and there shall not be any remaining of the house of Esau, for Yahweh has spoken it. So for all the wisdom that Esau thought he had, for all the smarts that he had, for all his IQ talk, for all his university talk that he had, right, for all of that, for all of his speeches and his long words that he used, that's going to be his judgment. So really, all the things that he thought he had as wisdom were nothing. And really, he was the ultimate fool, man. He was the one that thought he was greater than the creator of the earth. I'm going to end the lesson there. All praises to Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahweh Shai, Ba'Shem Rakar Kodash. Double honors to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone. And Shalom to the elect of the nation of Israel. Shalom.